welcome to the Daiwa Anglo-Japanese Foundation. So my name is Jason James, and I'm just going to do the introductions really, and then hand over to the real speakers for today. Right, well we're going to talk about volunteering, and particularly volunteering at Olympics, and I hope we're going to learn a certain amount about the Tokyo Olympics and Paralympics, because of course none of us were able to go. So we're looking forward to some stories from the front line. And so our main speaker is Charles Nishikawa here, whom I'll introduce, and then he'll be talking to Noel Thatcher in a minute. I'll just introduce the two of them. So Charles was trained originally as a lawyer and then got an MBA, but he volunteered in the London Olympics and in Sochi 2014, Rio 2016, Tokyo 2020, and in particular in Tokyo 2020, he was essentially in charge of the volunteer program, and he provides lectures and advises governments on volunteering for this kind of event, and he also wrote a book, Tokyo Olympic no volunteer ni naritai hito ga yomu hon. The book to read if you want to volunteer for the Tokyo Olympics. So I guess it's probably not selling much anymore. Anyway, and then so Noel Thatcher MBE. Well, wherever Japan and sport are mentioned, Noel is usually there. In my experience, including at Helen's event last week, which is a Japan and sport event. So Noel ran in 6 different Paralympic Games between 1984 and 2004, and won 5 gold medals. And he was the flag carrier actually for the UK in the opening ceremony in Athens 2004. And he also speaks excellent Japanese. He studied Japanese at SOAS and came 3rd in the annual Sir Peter Parker speech competition.
Podium finish.
That was a podium finish, bronze medal, yeah. But that was about like 25 years ago, so he would definitely come first if he were to do it now.
No pressure.
And because of his role in sport and Japan, Noel was an enormous help to the Japanese when they were arranging the Tokyo 2020 Olympics and Paralympics. But I suppose you weren't able to go in the end either.
Sadly not, but for very different reasons. I was understaffed for Paralympics GP.
Right. And Noel received the 2019 Japanese Foreign Minister's commendation for his contribution to UK-Japan relations through sport. So, that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to pass over to Charles to give his presentation to kick us off.
Thank you very much for coming today. It's such a lovely day, and then probably a lot of people really enjoy like drinking a pint of beer or something like that. But now, here. Also, I can provide some my experience first of all, and then talk about a lot of things after that with the Noel. Anyway, the life-changing event or life-changing experience. Some of you already had that kind of things, or some of you maybe like encounter in the future, or sooner or later. In my case, London 2012. That's changed my life completely. And then since then, I got stuck in the Olympic, the volunteer program. So as a volunteer, I did the London 2012, and also Sochi, and then Rio, and then Tokyo. In case of Tokyo, just he explained that I was appointed as an advisor. So I was not really in charge of the volunteer program, but advisory service, or kind of they used me to get a lot of experience. But anyhow, that's what I did, and then I was in Tokyo for the last 3 years, and then after that, mission accomplished, so I returned back here. I've been here since 1990, so this is my home. So London was quite interesting experience. I've been like always the big Olympic and Paralympic fan for a long time since I was young. So each time in Olympics, Paralympics, I was so excited. And then at that time, the London was chosen, and I said, I have to do something, but the best way is, okay, let's volunteer. And especially in my case, I did a lot of the interpretation. So, language side, probably they can pick me. So that's the reason why. And then I actually, apply, and then I got a role. So in case of London, that was a really good like experience and really fun. And then remember, the weather was also very good. That's really unusual, but weather was really good. And then I had a really good time with some Olympic the gold medalist, Yonemitsu. But he is just in the left hand side. And also this is our members of the language service. I will talk about them a little bit later. But most of them are girls, so now I was really lucky to get a position. So there's only one guy in the center. So. But anyhow, and then also remember the victory parade of the London Games. So that was really fun. And then we were actually following those athletes just behind them. And then also people actually coming from all over, they actually cheer us as well, just like the athletes. So I found at that time I was kind of representative of the normal people in Britain. So that was really made me, kind of pride. And then in case of pride, remember the theme song of the London Games? Pride. And then this is really nice song. And then I remember that at that time, year 2008 was a recession. And then just before Olympics, people were so depressed. And then, they lost their confidence. And then kids, they really don't know what to do. So inspired generation. And also they set up many distinctive, clear objectives. So they first of all, let's redevelop the east side of London. Or let's put Britain as the kind of top the country for the sports, and also the sustainable living environment of the for example Olympic Park area. But also in Britain it's really important, and then of course inspire young kids to do something. Let's make you feel proud. That's really a nice song, particularly. And also, of course, in Britain, we are really practical people. So okay, let's make money. So let's invite a lot of the investment, and also invite more tourists, and also the students and everything. So let's put the Britain as the nice, a good image of the Britain as well. That really worked pretty well. So that's the successful, and then also after the Olympic Games, people became more happy, and then I can do it. So that's the one of the achievement particularly we did during the London Games. And then what I did, I actually talked about the language service. That's my responsibility. But in case of the Olympic volunteers, Paralympic volunteers, we have many roles particularly. And then in case of the Tokyo, the 70,000 volunteers actually got involved in that. And mainly they take care of the, of course, spectators, and then, in case of Tokyo, no spectators, so really unfortunate situation. But also take care of the athletes, and also sport itself, and also media. A lot of media actually arrive, and then we have to take care of them. They are really demanding, so probably one of the really difficult ones. They're really sometimes get really nasty. But anyhow, those area, and plus the medical service. So first, a responder, volunteers actually got involved in there, and even professionals such as the doctors or nurses, they actually volunteer as the even they're professional. They gave up their time to do something more. So those very important big cause is a really important part of the volunteer. But anyhow, that's the real games. So nice the bunch of the people coming from all over the world actually. Of course I'm here, but Chinese, and then Malay, and also the Thailand, and then Spain, and Argentina, and then Germany, and everywhere. So that's the really beauty of the Olympic, especially language service. Language service, we actually translate let's say about 20-30 languages to English, because English is the operational language of the volunteer the games, both the Olympic and Paralympics. In case of Olympics, also the French is the official language, but actual operation, English is the language. And then our main the client is the Olympic broadcast service or the news service. That's what they we taking care of them. So what we're going to do is like this. This is one of the scenes in the Rio Olympic, and what's our main the role is the post the game interview. So the left hand side is the actual playing field, so it's table tennis in my case, like a table tennis is my like a sport. So I did table tennis for like London and Rio and then Tokyo as well. So after the match, they actually comes like going back to the locker room, but we grab them and then also do the interview. So Olympic broadcast service has the first priority usually. And then the next one is CCTV, the Chinese TV. So the Chinese coach is just over there. But in case of this one, this is Jun Mizutani. He's a very famous Japanese, like a male table tennis player. And we did the interview. So let's take a look at that. This is video. So interviewer, she's the OBS, and then she's asking the Mizutani in English, and then I will like interpret between the Mizutani and then also this interviewer. You can't hear it, a little bit like far away, but that's the way. But Mizutani actually can understand a little bit English as well, but he always said that each time, like his like answers going to be exactly the same. So he really appreciates our work actually. So this is the actual like doing what we are doing. Maybe 80% of our work is going to be like this one, and then eventually it's going to be like this. This is now the London game at the table tennis the group like a team event of the semi-final Japan against Singapore. And then this is a history-making time because this is the first like a Japanese medal guarantee. Because in the past, Japan is really famous for the table tennis, but always Chinese dominated that. And then we didn't actually get any medal at that time until this time. So let's take a look at that. So the Kasumi Nishikawa and then the Sayaka Hirano playing against the Singapore. You can see the Olympic chime there. This one. That was really, really impressive. And then I've is there. Yeah, and she was really famous. Like those Kasumi Nishikawa is now she recently retired, but they did a really good job, and now currently she's doing a little bit commentating like a work as well for the table tennis for TV Tokyo. Anyway, that's the actual result. So I was there and then doing this kind of thing. So especially as a table tennis player, it was so emotional. And then I almost cried actually. I'm sure a little bit later on the different ones. But anyway, so the London Olympic was such a success, and then they was really, really happy, and then it was so much. But after that, it was kind of a little bit lost kind of feeling. But anyway, the Sochi, the Winter Games, going to recruit the volunteers immediately after that, and then actually the representative of Sochi actually arrived in during the game of the London, and then talking about there's another opportunity you can do that in Sochi, and in case of the Winter Olympics, it's relatively small scale. And then also the venue is going to be a little bit away from the city center, so they will provide the accommodation sometimes. In case of the Winter Games. So in case of summer games, you have to pay everything, volunteers. Even coming from abroad. So that's the volunteer way. But in case of the Winter Olympics, they provide sometimes those special benefits. So most of the Sochi games. Russia hasn't got the same kind of a volunteer kind of mentality, or they don't have that kind of a culture at all almost. So to be honest, that's a mobilization of the students, especially to give them a little bit opportunity to learn a lot of things, and also international setting. So it's going to be a really great, wonderful opportunity for them. And most of them now, they're doing a lot of interesting work. And sometimes you can see a little bit old faces, usually international volunteers like him, But also a little bit more mature ladies as well. Those are teachers usually. So that's certain assistants there. So she's a teacher. She was a Japanese teacher as well in Russia. She speaks really good Japanese as well. So that was fun. And then the Sochi time, I was in the main press center because in case of language service, usually journalists are our main clients. So I was there and then helping those journalists to make sure everything's okay. Japanese journalists are really meticulous in many different ways, and then usually every Olympics, Japanese delegates or the media people, they came first. They come first, always, with tons of list, and then the tons of the cup noodles, and then also the Japanese curry, kind of things, So I can see that. Oh God, what is that? But anyhow, I had a really good time over there. But more like I was the teacher of those young kids, so I had to do a lot of training and those things as well. So they took advantage of me. Anyway, so that's the Sochi. And then, of course, the Tokyo was chosen, and then just before Tokyo game, that was Rio. So I actually volunteer Rio as well. So if you can see that, this is the official press conference, and then this was the bronze medal of the Japanese girls the table tennis team. So Kasumi Nishikawa is there, and then the Mima Ito, and then also the Aifukahara is there. So even interpreter, I was sitting in the middle. So I was like a head coach or something like that. I said that, where I should sit, and why don't you sit down in the middle? So that's anyway like this one. So this is my highlight of this. Definitely, that was really fun. Okay, and then because I'm a big fan of the Kasumi, the distance is really close, so she's really pretty anyway. Okay, then those my fellow volunteers also coming from all over the world. Some also in Brazil. There's a lot of the big Japanese Brazilian community. So some people coming from the Sao Paulo particularly, and then she's there. So there's a little bit few a Japanese the Brazilian as well. Interestingly, in the table tennis world. Now this Calderano is a really famous guy. He's a top 10 player of the world. But before that, it's more like a Japanese Brazilian. So all the names Suzuki, Yamamoto, and Kato is all the Brazilians really related to table tennis. They're Japanese descendants. So that's a really nice bunch of people there. The Rio was really interesting. It was kind of chaos, preparation was really bad, and then sometimes a lot of a political issue as well. But they know how to manage in some way, last minute, improvisation. So Brazilian way, that works pretty well, and then people are really happy with that. So I had a really good time over there. And then we learned a lot of things from Brazil in Tokyo games, because usually Japanese are really meticulous and then attention to detail. But Brazilian, sometimes, well, we can manage in some way. They did it, so that's really good. But that was a really fun game. So the reporter, the interviewer, we worked together for a long time. So very nice. It was really lucky, this position. She's really nice too. Okay, so now I was appointed as the advisor of the Tokyo Games organizing committee. So I did a lot of things, because at that time, Rio, just before Rio, Tokyo was chosen. So a lot of delegates come to London and then Rio as well. So even I welcomed the Prime Minister Abe. He was the main the figure to promote the Tokyo Olympic Games. So that was my very interesting memory. And then at that time he was a little bit tired, so he didn't ask so much questions, but so many questions. But we talked about a little bit things. And then the Sebastian Coe is here, and then also Japanese the ambassador as well. So that was a really nice memory. So because I did the London and then Sochi and Rio, at that time also I got involved in the Tokyo Nippon Foundation. They are the major supporter of the Tokyo Games, and especially Paralympic Games, because a lot of organizations, they haven't got any office or nothing like that, so they provide entire floor for the Paralympic Games to set up the offices and then promote the Paralympic Games. But also, they are one of the maybe the best organization to administrate or operate the volunteers, because they have a lot of experience of the volunteering in many different ways, including sports volunteers. So they know how to manage those volunteers. So I actually work with them to provide more support to the organizing committee. So, in case of the Tokyo Games, it was really surreal. As you know, that was under the COVID situation, and a lot of restriction there. So it was completely different from the London or Rio's a very fun, festive atmosphere. It's nothing. It's really surreal. And then people, even people in Japan, they really like Olympics and Paralympics. And then they want to watch it, but because of the atmosphere, and then the people got they became quiet, and some a nasty comment, because there's a lot of a problem, particularly in the Tokyo Games initially, some kind of black money, and then also the some guff, Mr. Mori told terrible things, for example, and then he has resigned. So a lot of criticism going on, and especially criticism, they actually did that anonymously. So I got a lot of terrible tweets and then everything, personally as well, because I was to be honest, the face of the games, and I did a lot of the PR campaign, the media interviews, and also the selection and then training and of the volunteers. So that was a really difficult time. So in this case, we know how to manage it, because the interpreters, we get really close to the athletes and also media people, but we have to manage a certain a distance and everything like that. So this is the kind of rehearsal time, and then because I was experienced, I talking about with those the Olympic broadcast service people, and because this is really interesting, TV Asahi, and I think Asahi, yeah, they came to actually take a look at that, because this is under the current very difficult situation, how a volunteer will do it. So that's one of the scene, very interesting. And then this is the highlight, probably the Tokyo Olympics. In case of table tennis, this is the first gold medal we got for the mixed doubles. So Mizutani and then Ito, and then they got the doubles gold medal. So I thought that they're going to make it, but and then I pray, and then finally got it. So that was really brilliant moment. So I did the interview of this very memorable situation. But before they came, I was so emotional, because I was the table tennis player, and then table tennis means a lot to me. So they interviewed and said that, Charles, are you okay? I'm crying. And then I told him that no, I'm sweating, but so that was really emotional moment. And then some other interviews, and then Mima Ito, she's very good, and she's really one of the top 10 players of the women's the table tennis player. So that was really nice, and she remembers me. Oh, you are still here. Oh, you remember me. So very fun, and then very energetic girl. And then the Timo Boll is a famous a German player, and also I interviewed him, and then also other people as well. And during the Paralympic, now I moved to the different a sport called the goalball. So they have the visual impairment. So in this case, we have to do a little bit, to think about what we're going to do that. But it's really amazing, because they have a little bit visual problem. So their communication ability, particularly talking, is very good. It's unbelievable how they choose the word, and then also how they speak up. So it's really clear. That was my really a big impression during this global, because I never actually done that before. I never knew this sport particularly, but that was a very good, a very interesting experience. And Japanese girls team, and also even a men's team, did very well. Turkey in a women's the area, that's really strong, and they got gold medal, but we got silver medal. So that was really nice. It's a very interesting and then very exciting environment. Again, not that many us people around there, so that was a little bit, unfortunate. So those are our teammates, almost the OBS. OBS coming from all over the world. They're the freelance journalists, and then also the industry specialist. So he's from the Argentina. He's coming from Mario. He's doing photography, the camera things. And then of course, he's Chinese Canadian, and he's from the Canada. And then our team is there, and then also the same. Yeah, she's actually I used to teach in the universities back in Japan, when I was there. And she's my student, and I recruited her as the staff of the language service. She did pretty well. And then she's Japanese American, and then also the OBS, more like administration and managing people. We have to grab those athletes to take to the in front of our camera. So that's what we did. So it's a really proud moment. So yep, that's my experience. So yeah, shall we talk about
So Charles, I mean, from my perspective as an athlete, so our experiences of Paralympics, specifically Olympics, quite different. Obviously, as an athlete, and at London, I worked for the BBC on the Paralympics coverage. I have to say, without the volunteers, there would not be an Olympic movement or a Paralympic movement. And from an athlete's perspective, the volunteers really act as that link between the organisation of the games and the personal experience of the game. And your experience as an athlete is immensely positively coloured by the volunteers. So you really are, I think, I saw this on the Olympic website, the volunteers are described as the heartbeat of the Olympic legacy. You didn't mention the Paralympics, so we'll let them off for that for tonight only. But really, I think without the volunteers, the games would be clearly a very different entity, and the entire ethos of the games and the feel of the games would be very. From your point of view, you mentioned in an interview, so I have a friend who worked for the Yomiuri Shimbun, and I got him to do a bit of research for me on you. It's a little bit like hiring private detective, but don't worry. Didn't come up with anything at all shady. So you in an interview, you described this kokoro no legacy, so legacy of the heart.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think your experiences as a volunteer sort of coloured your own personal worldview?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe if you could talk a little bit about how your experiences might have changed, or maybe the volunteer experience you think has an impact on sort of overall legacy of the games.
Yeah, particularly like a volunteer, the mentality or the culture is quite different from Britain and here. In Japan, sometimes time doesn't count that much. So in case of volunteer, because of the community situation, you have to do certain things, even you really don't want to do it. But come on, I really have to do because my son is actually belong to the whatever. So social pressure is a really main cause of that. So but sports volunteering is a really easy step. It's a really good step because it's fun, And so that's why I really promote the Olympic Games. It's a really good experience and a very good starting point to actually promote the volunteer program in general in Japan as well. And in case of the volunteering, particularly a big cause like Olympics or Paralympics Games, there's a huge moment, life-changing moment or kind of history-making moment, and you are very close to them, and that's a really interesting part for the younger people and even elder, more mature people as well. In case of Tokyo, that was a really surreal, very difficult situation compared with London and then Rio. But each time after the post game interviews, a lot of athletes, they actually told that thank you very much for hosting this Olympics, because it's such a difficult time.
Yeah.
And then we also believe that maybe, or we kind of worry about that it's going to be cancelled or whatever, but finally it happened and I got a gold medal or whatever. So that's actually made us, okay, I did something good. So that was really interesting moment.
And those relationships last a long time, don't they? My personal experience is the very first time I went to Japan, the Daikai Sekai Moji Marathon Taikai in Miyazaki.
Mm-hmm.
The volunteers who supported us at that game, they're still my friends. They're my very first Japanese friends, and they're my very longest Japanese friends. And those relationships do last. And you're invested in those moments as well, aren't you? So if someone wins a gold medal, wins a silver medal, or the other side of the coin doesn't perform well, and you're doing that must be quite quite a moment for you as a person.
And also personally, for example, I show the Mizutani. He actually they announced that he's going to almost retire after the Olympic Games. And then after the medal ceremony, actually he came to my place and then asked, they told me that, thank you very much, you did the wonderful job since the London time and also another the table tennis championship. And then, and this time I got the medal, but thank you very much for your work and thank you very much for your help. And then, that made me cry, definitely.
One of my abiding memories of the volunteers at Tokyo was one of the, I think it might have been a Barbadian or Jamaican 400-meter runner, got on the wrong bus.
Yes.
Found himself at the yachting or somewhere, which is a challenge for a 400-meter run. And one of the volunteers didn't have any money, of course, just had his accreditation. And one of the volunteers paid his taxi fare to the Olympic Stadium, and I think that was broadcast. And my personal experience in Atlanta, so I did my Jizen Gashiku, my sort of prep camp in Nagano, Miyazaki, and I got to Atlanta, and the story of Atlanta is after the Olympic Games, the organisers cleared all the stuff out of the athletes' village. So we had no fridges, no cookers, the bedding was all right. So we took over the accommodation, which had been, I'm going to say, a former Russian Federation weightlifting team. We'd completely destroyed the room. So the food was awful in Atlanta. It literally was, typical sort of donuts, junk, fat. And it was the Japanese team's chief translator, who I believe, I'm still not sure of the car manufacturer, was the wife of the president. I think it was either Honda or Toyota USA, who took me under her wing and actually took me out to feed me.
Oh,
a Japanese restaurant. And I did okay in Atlanta. We had 2 gold medals in the 5 and the 10, came with a stress fracture. So she's, it was, those are the moments I think that define, the volunteering program. But on a wider level, in terms of how you think that volunteer program sort of supports long-term legacy, and particularly, I don't know, I mean obviously I'm a Paralympian, so sort of social attitudes towards disability or attitudes towards women in sport. Helen's here tonight, so I've got how do you think that those volunteers, contribute towards those sort of societal changes, the broader changes?
Yeah, I think variety of areas, particularly Paralympic Games. Before that, even London, people didn't know how to deal with them. For example, if you see some people with a disability, how can I help? They didn't know that. But after the Paralympic Games, people's attitude changed completely. And then especially in London, sometimes the infrastructure is not really, because that's old, sometimes the infrastructure is not really well, managed, no escalator or whatever. So, but people actually hold it and then help them. So a lot of things happen. So in that sense, Tokyo, it's a really good step. I think they started doing, and then also the local governments and also the government itself, they actually made the more accessible infrastructure and everything like that. So that was a really good area as well. In case of the social structure and the social attitude towards the Olympic Games, sometimes still because of the difficult situation, it takes a little bit of time. But in case of volunteering, as I told you before, the Japanese mentality towards volunteering, especially in difficult situation, it's completely different. In case of Japan, in case of here, the giving your time or giving your skill, that's a really a big part of that. In case of Japan, it doesn't care too much. They don't pay for the time usually. They pay for something tangible. That's always the Japanese way. Even I used to be a management consultant. You have to submit some kind of report. Otherwise, they're not gonna pay me. So spending time, it doesn't matter for them. Even they tell them many important points. They technical things. It doesn't matter. You have to make a report. Tangible things. That's the Japanese mentality. But anyhow, and then also those difficult situation of the social pressure and everything like that. But sports volunteers is a little bit different because it's easy access. And then it's fun, and you can make a lot of friends. So that's the first experience that, it must be very interesting to do. So I hope it's going to be, a legacy. It's going to be a legacy. But also, of course, you can inspire younger people. But in my case, I also concentrate the kind of middle-aged people as well. a little bit in Japan is still like a gender gap. It's gender, the fixed mentalities there. In case of volunteers, 60% of the volunteers in Tokyo were women, 60% women and 40% men. And then in case of the 20-something, of course the students, there are a lot of. And then 30, 40, not that many because they're working all day, especially men. And then ladies, after the 40-something, they started coming back because you know that in Japan, once you get a child, 70% of people quit and then they're not going to come back to the office again. So those people about 40-something, their kids grown up, and then let's do something new. And then that's volunteers, a very interesting part of that. And in case of men, after 60-something, retired, they lost their object or the purpose of life. And then I promote those people, especially the local government, told those people that volunteer is a very good way to find your new second life. And that works pretty well. So a lot of people carry on doing that kind of things.
So one of my other various roles and hats, if you like, in 2019 I went out to 2018. Went out to Tokyo as global ambassador for Volunteers for Parkrun. It is a huge organisation globally with 8 million registrants. It's probably the best free health initiative that's ever been created anywhere in the world. Proud to say that was born in London, just down the road. But one of the things that we thought when we were looking at setting up Parkrun, because essentially Parkrun, you run 5 kilometres on every Saturday, and it's entirely volunteer-led. So everybody who sets up the course and marshals the course and takes the time they're entirely volunteer. But the model there was very much community-centric. So either mobilising people within the community, such as that demographic you spoke of, people who retired and are still looking to be active, might be lonely and looking to make friends, but also things like hikikomori, getting people out and working together and supported. How does that sit against the kind of overt commercial model of the Olympics?
The commercial model.
Yeah, isn't it? There's an intrinsic kind of friction there in terms of. So my perception of the volunteers who supported me and my teammates and at all the games, incredibly kind, incredibly altruistic, arguably there to be part of a huge sporting festival and historic moment in their life. And you're looking at TV rights for the Olympics coming in at somewhere between what's going to be $700 million and $1 billion must be for the next lot. They're kind of that was an interesting contrast.
Yeah, that was the big argument, particularly especially in Tokyo. There's a lot of the scandals and many things happen. So a little bit people criticize the Olympic Games. They always took that point because in case of volunteers, always you have to agree with the big cause. Olympic spirit, for example. And then some people really don't understand it. And then some people see that that's a pure a commercial events. And then in that case, they also attack those volunteer program because they use those free volunteers to just make this game happen, and then they make money. Yeah, some parts it could be, but if you believe that because of the Olympic Games, personally I don't feel 100%. Some parts I really agree with them. So I actually did a lot of the debates with those people, but. Yeah, some people I agree with that. Yeah, that I know, but very important part of Olympic spirit, and that's very different. So let's start. Let's make this one kind of nice first step for example, younger people or more retired people to mingle with not just only your schoolmates, but not only your ex-colleagues. But different kind of people coming from many different backgrounds.
It's an excellent opportunity to sort of really push Japan as a national brand, as a culture, because those volunteers they are essentially the face of the Olympics after the athletes.
Well,
They go back into their communities and may well be the instigators of other programs supporting other causes for the better.
Yeah, especially the maybe you saw some videos and then how the Japanese volunteers like welcome the athletes, and then because athletes, they are really scared because they are no like spectators. Usually spectators, their cheering is a really important part of their like their performance.
Yeah.
And this time nobody's there. It's really strange. But volunteers always they say, yeah, come on.
No, what the athletes said,
yeah,
and they actually did say
I appreciate that.
athletes said in the stadium, the volunteers made sufficient noise to motivate them to those incredible performances. So before Jason, I don't know how we're doing for time. I would definitely tell us, if you're only going to win a gold medal at one sport, what would it be?
Me? Table tennis.
Yeah, okay.
But that was a long time ago, so it was really difficult.
These are my quick fire questions. And the most Olympic sporting moment that you've witnessed. So it might be an act of kindness, it might be a act of sporting excellence. What do you think?
Probably I actually told some many the important moment, but probably the Jun Mizutani came to me and then said thank you very much after the medal ceremony. So that was really big, like a moment. And also he got also the gold medal, first gold medal for the Japanese like a table tennis. So that was really wonderful experience for me. I was really lucky because my role was so close to like the athletes. But even they taking care of spectators or even the nasty journalists or whatever. But that was a really exciting moment, and you have some encounter with the something history-making moments or anything like that. And also in London time, I was in the Excel Center, so we actually hosted many different the sports. And then one day, I did quite a few also the boxing as well. It ended up quite late. And after that, I really needed to drink, so I went to the pub next door, and then there's a bunch of drunken Irish people there, and then they gave me pints. Okay, you did a good job. So that was really fun as well.
That's similar to my experience after winning bronze in the Sydney 10,000 meters. Maybe it's the same bunch of drunk Irish people. I'm not so sure. But.